Your network is your network. Welcome to Connect, where we dive deeper to discover the secrets of building strategic relationships. Today I'm excited to have Beatrice Good Connect. Beatrice, welcome to the podcast. And for those who don't know you yet, could you please introduce yourself and tell us a bit about your background?
Well, my surname is very perfect for this with good connections, good connect.
100%.
There's that.
Yeah. Say it all.
What about me would you specifically like to know? Because there's a lot. There's a lot.
Okay, I would love, I follow you on LinkedIn from 2 years ago, something like that. And
Yeah.
I see your good work, so I'd love to know more about it.
Right, okay. So I'm a brand strategy consultant, which basically
Mm-hmm.
that just means you're helping businesses change how they're perceived. So you're not just following everybody else in the industry, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're leading the way in your own kind of direction,
Mm-hmm.
right?
True.
It's really honing into what makes your business you, or what makes it and leaning into that without going through 69 pages of documents and having it actually work throughout the business.
Mm-hmm. So, you study the founder's character or the company's mission and vision, and based on that, you tailor the branding strategy, right?
Yes. So,
Okay.
it depends on how much the founder, for example, the owner,
Mm-hmm.
is involved in the business and how much it is like a part of them.
Mm-hmm.
Oftentimes it is, because the vision comes from them, right? So we look
True.
at okay, what is the past? Where are you at in the present? And what are your goals in the future,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it goes around that. It's not like, oh, hey, here's a solution for you. There's no templates. It's very much based on where you're at, be it for a personal brand or for a business brand like that I work with.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. True, 100%.
So
Yeah.
aside from that, born and grew up in Australia, hence the kangaroo that you see all over the place,
Yeah.
with the baseball bat, because you want it to be extra badass.
It's your
Kangaroos
signature.
exactly.
Yeah.
Kangaroos are already badass enough with their kick force. Give it a baseball bat, just level it up. Spent the last 12 years before moving to Spain in Southeast Asia. So have been about the world.
Wow, that's inspiring and that's great. And here I want to ask you, being around the world, what did it teach you?
Oh, love it, love it. And so the biggest thing is that there are other ways of looking at things,
Okay.
right? Staying in the same place, you're so used to doing the same thing
Mm-hmm.
and being inside that specific box. And that's why a big part of my why is pushing back against social norms, right?
Mm-hmm.
Social norms, be it from okay, you need to grow up, go to university, have a job, get 2.5
Mm-hmm.
kids, have a white picket fence, or the social norms from the business side where it's hey, have a look at what the others are doing in the industry. And this is what we should follow, right? What's everybody else doing? So pushing back on that and being well, actually, let's not do that and see what feels right for the business. What is that little je ne sais pas? That's something that positions you in a way that's different. So it's a lot of that pushback against that. And that's what, traveling around the world and living overseas has brought me, as well as the fact that the best growth and the most growth is being outside of your comfort zone. And there is no better way in doing that than putting yourself like in a completely different country. So say for example, when I moved from Southeast Asia, from
Mm-hmm.
Thailand and Myanmar to Spain, where I didn't speak Spanish aside from the Duolingo, which I had been doing for, I don't know, like 100 or so days before that, to set yourself up to get yourself like that bit of comfort
Mm-hmm.
again. You have to be uncomfortable. You
Mm-hmm.
have to do those things. And
100%.
there is so much growth in that.
I agree. I 100% agree. And I want to share something. Like it's a personal story. I feel afraid to travel, right? And I don't know why. Like speaking on getting out of your comfort zone and expanding your comfort zone, I love doing that. I do that all the time. But traveling for me is very scary. Like I'm very afraid to be away from my family. You know. So I don't know. Maybe after this episode, I will take a decision to travel. Yeah. And what did this experience teach you about yourself? Like, we don't want to talk only about what are the lessons you've learned, but what did you learn about yourself?
So I'm going to jump back to what you were saying about your experience just for
Mm-hmm.
a moment and say that I feel the same. So if I don't travel for quite some time, there's that fear that builds up again. For me, it doesn't go away. Like it builds up if I don't do it for a while.
Okay.
And a lot of people that I speak to seem to have like that similar sort of thing. If you don't do
Oh.
it for a while, it's like, oh, actually, I'm a little bit afraid, like, you know, something new, something
Mm-hmm.
different. Like, oh, you're like, what if I can't do this? So I think it is really like a matter of just putting yourself out there and just keep on doing it,
Mm.
regardless whether it's traveling, whether it's business, whether it's work, whether it's, say, for example, communication,
Yeah.
charisma, etc. Like
True.
these sorts of things, like you can only hone and
Mm-hmm.
finesse if you just keep on doing it. So the same thing in terms of between the podcasts,
Mm-hmm.
right? So between the podcasts, like season 1 and season 2, I had 6 months where I didn't record anything. I didn't have like these kinds of conversations.
Yeah.
And I had my first one, and it was just like all over the place. Like I felt so nervous, and I was so worried
Oh.
in advance. I was like, oh, like what if like that fear comes back again?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now you make
So
me feel better. Like everyone experiences this. I thought I only do experience this.
yeah, no,
Okay.
it's very much everyone. So anyway, to jump back, what was your question again?
What did you learn about yourself?
What did I learn about myself? Yeah, that I actually have a lot more strength and voice and opinion, and there is so much more to me
Mm-hmm.
than what I had originally thought, right? Like I
Okay.
think being or growing up in one place, you're so used to a certain set of ways people think,
True.
right? And putting yourself outside of that and outside of your comfort zone and, getting to experience other cultures, just taking a random walk and trusting yourself that you are going to be fine. Maybe you'll discover something new, or you're going to try some new food. And well, there's a 50-50 chance of you liking it or not liking it. And that's never going to change. It's just maybe you'll like it. Maybe you'll have that new experience, and then you can talk about that on a podcast, or you can put it into a post. You've lived, and that was a big part of, when my mom and dad passed away. It was just like hey, you only get to do this life thing once. If there's even that little tiny bit of me that is like, yes, yes, I want to do this. And the rest of me is like, no, I'm scared. Like, I don't want to do this. I'm going to make myself say yes.
Wow. Rest in peace for your mom and dad. And this is very inspiring concerning going out of your comfort zone and putting yourself in uncomfortable situations. And that's what I will be doing from now on. Concerning traveling and yeah. So, going back to the main topic of our podcast, which is networking and building connections. Um, Many entrepreneurs feel scared and feel that they cannot stand out in an event or a crowded situation or even in their community. What do you believe are the branding elements that may help in making someone stand out?
So there's a couple of different elements in what you've just said there. One,
Okay.
like, you need to have that confidence. And for me, I'm a very big believer in faking it until
You
it's
make
just there.
Yeah, okay. Take it till you make
For
it.
sure. That
Yeah.
fake it till you make it. I'm a very big believer, and that is like a very big um, reason that I've had a lot of the experiences that I've had.
Mhm.
Right. But in terms of the brand strategy element of what you've just mentioned there, a big part that you can really take is going into your values. Okay. And I don't mean like, hey, I really want to be all about authenticity. Everybody's talking about authenticity or, empathetic. Like, try to steer away from these commonly used terms. So let's go into like authenticity. So, say for example, what is your version of authenticity? What does that look like? How is your approach to authenticity? That is what you need to lean into. If you list those down, right, maybe
Mhm.
pop that into AI and say, be like, okay, based on these things, what would be my word or words? Give me some options, right? And so that'll give you something a lot clearer and a lot more true to who you are and what you represent, right? So building out those values and then taking that into how you want to be positioned in the market, right? Like
Okay.
that really involves understanding, okay, so competition is doing this. Have a look at a few profiles, maybe a handful, right? Like I understand that there are thousands right, in any given industry.
True.
So just take a few that you would believe like maybe would be direct competitors and see like what are they doing, what are they not doing, so that gap is what you lean into. But then you're making sure also from the audience's perspective, it's something that they actually need,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
There's no point in choosing something which your audience, they're just like, okay, I mean, that's great, fantastic. It needs to like draw some interest.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, what did you just say? Like, uh, one of my initial clients, we spoke about their direction and honed into their interest in music
Okay.
and meshing that together and what that looks like, right? And even previously, like for e-commerce, it is understanding, okay, this is what the main competitor that's taken into like control of the whole community.
Mhm.
Okay, this is how they're focused. What are they not doing? But staying true to the culture, right?
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
I'm not saying go and like flip tables, go and like throw a baseball bat around. It needs to be right for your business.
True. It's not like about reinventing the wheel. It's more like innovation, you know. So it is an intersection between values, your strengths, and the pain
Mhm.
points your audience or your clients may have.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
So being aware of what is going on in the environment, being aware of like what is going on, go inwards first. And
Mhm.
I mean go inwards beyond the first kind of answers. Because the first answers are never the
The
answers,
true answers,
right?
right?
Exactly. And that's why I recommend, like, say, for example, if you're trying to hone into what, like, is your individual differentiation, talk with friends, talk with a complete stranger. It's like
Mhm.
one of my first messages when, like, I connect with somebody or somebody reaches out to connect with me is like, hey, thanks for connecting. I really appreciate that. I'd love to understand what kind of drew your attention to connect. And I know a lot of people on LinkedIn are just like, oh, that's so cringe. And it's like, that's not the point. The point is like, then you know what to hone in on. This is a particular thing that stood out. And by me asking that, I've also gotten to understand big thing is the kangaroo. Oh my
Mhm.
God, like I noticed a kangaroo and I'm like, yeah, so that's like, how often do you see a kangaroo that's holding a baseball bat? Uh, Two is like how I word things, the
Mhm.
content, the approach of like including pop culture
True.
in with like the regular to make it very understandable. So I know that these things are consistently being called out, so I know to double down on them.
And you know that this is your strength, and this is what makes you stand
Exactly.
out. Yeah, and because
Exactly.
your message becomes clearer this way, right? Um, Going to your badassery and kangaroo thing, right? You grew very fast on LinkedIn. I saw your growth. Like, yeah. So, what are some badassery strategies you've used to network with your community and to provide value and maybe to land an opportunity or a partnership on LinkedIn?
Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of prongs in that one as well. Let's go with let's go with like the networking aspect. So
Yeah, okay.
a big part of how I grew, and it honestly it was not as quick as a lot of other people, mainly because like it's it's just very
You do
like
you,
I
you know?
I try to do it like organically.
Yeah, yeah, okay.
I never once like paid for I don't know like pods or whatever. Like I try to avoid that. I try to stick
Mm,
with like people that resonate, and I will actively push like you see it in my content. I'm not gonna be like afraid to voice my style of speaking, my opinion, because that is pulling in a way, pulling in, sorry, the
mm-hmm,
people who resonate with me and
mm-hmm.
pushing people away who don't. And like people say, oh, whatever ridiculous comments, and I'm like, well, you could just keep scrolling. It's very possible. Your mouse does that. There is a thing.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of wasting your time commenting, right?
Right.
But being clear about that, this is within my own content, being true to the values and being consistent, right?
Mm-hmm.
I see a lot of people keep on changing things up on
Mm-hmm.
in their profile in a big way. Like, hey, let me like rebrand. This is not the solution. Hone in onto like what your values are, and even at the beginning, just if you want to keep things simple, right? To those things, to like what you sound like, what's your point of differentiation, how you want to be positioned, and just stick to that in your content, stick to that in the way that you speak to people. So a lot of people, I get the message, wow, your voice is like very refreshing, right? Because it's just so authentic. And it's like, it doesn't matter where you see me, be it like in person, here on a podcast, in my content, in the DMs, it's going to be the same.
The same person,
It's
the same voice.
the same
Yeah.
person. Yes, exactly. And that's what a lot of people like. This is different.
This is scary.
Because
Yeah. Yeah.
people can spot like a fakeness from a
Mm.
mile away. I know a lot of people say that, but it's still being done, right? So stick to something and then start conversations. Go and, either pop up a post being like, hey, like I'd like to speak to more people like this, I'm trying to grow my community. Go onto other posts and comment on them, comment on the comments of other people where you can banter on top of that. Like my
Mm-hmm.
favorite thing is if people come like on my um, posts or if I go on another post and it's like we banter or go backwards and forwards on one idea, right? You don't have to take it seriously, right? It is still a form of social media. You're still connecting with another human,
True.
right?
True.
Like if you start spouting like whatever facts, it's just going back into that like I'm a employee or like this is something about like business. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
business is always going to be the underlying thing, but at the very core of it, regardless of being a person, business, you're looking for work, just like everybody's still human. You're trying to connect on that human element, and that is what you need to lean into. That emotion, that reaction, that like laughter, the humor, the like whatever that is, that's what you want to lean into.
That's our
And
nature.
that is what I attribute. Sorry.
And that's our nature. Like our nature is to connect, to communicate, to get to know people.
Exactly.
True.
Exactly. That's the main thing. Just be a damn human.
Yeah, but many people are scared to do that. Like they fear judgment. What do you say to these people?
Small things. Small things. I get that because for a long time I didn't even think that I had a voice.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Wow.
looking at me now, it's like what?
Yeah.
A long time I did not believe it. And when I started posting like properly on LinkedIn, like I was looking at how other people are posting similar posts to that.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of it is just slowly like adding in a little bit, like a little bit of you. I'm not saying go crazy, right? Like each one of us has something that represents us, that makes us us. And
Mm-hmm.
it is just honing that, pulling that out. Like I highly encourage, this is what I do with like the businesses that I work with, and it will also work for personal brands, is develop a word bank, right? Of words that you are just you. So like say for example, on my word bank, there's like badassery, obviously, badass, hex, yeah. Like my term of like cussing or swearing is like, son of an Arabian goat. And it's just like nobody else says this. It's just because I just randomly started saying it one day and I'm like, well, you know what? Like I'm gonna use that as a point of difference. So it's like new terms, not industry terms, because a lot of people are gonna be like, oh, we talk about uh, leveraging or something like no, don't use an industry term. Use something that just like is your little quirk. Yeah, so it's really honing into your unique words,
Mm-hmm.
like be it badassery or be like something. Ask your friends. Be like, hey, what am I like? What are the things that I specifically say? What are my little
Yeah.
quirks,
Maybe.
right? Um, or just get put your writing or whatever your like your voice notes etc into AI and be like, are there any quirky sort of words that like stand out?
Yeah, I loved how you repeated like 2 times on how to use AI in your voice message, in your branding, and this is very inspiring and amazing. I didn't think about it, and I will use this. strategy, like after our podcast. And here I want to say something like everyone can go back to what made them feel excited as kids or as a child or what they liked most and connect them to their message, their work, their voice, and maybe the words, as you said, the way of approaching things, the way of communicating things. This can be linked to what you've liked also as a kid, like uh, maybe you've loved the kangaroo as a child, right? You did not?
The
Yeah.
kangaroo is solely because I'm Australian. It's just because people they love like
Yeah,
little
but it relates to you in some
Australians and
way.
kangaroos.
It relates to you in some way, and that's why you chose it, right? Yeah.
I mean, okay, so the kangaroo, like, there's a few reasons, but you remember there was this time when, like, on LinkedIn, everyone was having like these little emojis next to the name. Mine's still there, touch
Mhm.
wood, like
Mhm.
that it doesn't, that I
Yeah.
don't get kicked off anytime soon for it. But at that time, I was like, oh, I put up a poll going, what kind of emoji should I put on my next to my name? And then I was like, kangaroo, koala, like, I don't know, I was picking like a few random things, right?
Mhm.
And majority of the votes were kangaroo, and I'm like, kangaroo it is.
Okay.
It's a lot, like, from that, making sure that,
Yeah,
like,
and
okay, what are people's thoughts?
yeah, and people like once they look at you, even if they don't know you yet, they know uh, what what resonates with you or what is similar to you, to your character, and that's why they maybe chose kangaroo because it matches your character, right?
Slightly
Slightly.
crazy, but
Yeah, yeah, okay.
amazingly energetic. I don't even need coffee. I'm one of those weirdos that doesn't like inhale coffee every day.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
I mean, I have it sometimes just for the sake of like maybe I'll have a cup here and there, um, because it increases your metabolism.
Mhm.
But aside from that, like I'm completely fine without coffee
Your
and
energy
just
is
regular
built-in, right?
sass. Exactly. And I highly encourage like connecting with people who it's like you have that shared energy. Like you
Mm.
have a look. Like as soon as you see how people write
Mhm.
their content, right? Or there's gonna be something that resonates with you and like connect with more people like that. So you can have like conversations. So you can draw out your voice more,
Mhm.
so you can understand your values more. It is just continue to draw and develop on that. And that's how LinkedIn has been so powerful. Like, the podcast wouldn't have started if it wasn't for LinkedIn like connection. Elijah Drown is a producer for the art of branding, and he was the one that was like, "Hey, so have you thought about like doing a podcast?" And I'm like,
Let's do
"No,
this.
but let's talk about this."
Yeah.
And like, of course, like I was, and probably still am, like slightly afraid of being like, "Oh, this is all of me," right? The newsletter, same thing, like Comfort Igbanable. We had a conversation, and full credits to her, full freaking credits. She's like, "Oh, hey, I've been like reading and watching for you like for a while now, and I did like some sample like newsletter um
Mhm.
articles for
Mhm.
you." Like I did not ask anything, right? So she went and had that initiative, and since then, like we've been working together,
Wow.
right? Is
Mm.
really taking that initiative and like being like, "Hey, I understand you." There's a lot of people who come into DMs and be like, "Oh, your video sucks. I can help you with this," or like,
Yeah.
"Oh, I can improve your reach, etc." And it's like, well, and then like you have a look at their work, or like they'll send you something, and it's like, well, this is something generic. This doesn't represent me at all. right? So it's really understanding who you're talking to, and when you're reaching out to people, just pull out something that they're proud about, like that they're
Provide value
excited
in
or they.
some way. Provide value in some way. Like one of my guests shared a similar story, and he was like, the first thing you have to do when approaching someone is to provide value. If you cannot find something to provide value in, find something, a common interest, common ground, or something. But you have to provide something that makes the counterpart feel special and like builds rapport from the first moment you get out to them. Instead of like, hey, I do this and that. Let's work together. I don't know you to work with you, you know? I don't know you.
Exactly. And whatever you do, do not like send a connection invite to me, at least. That includes like synergy. Let's find synergies. And it's like, oh, no, please don't stop. Go
Yeah,
away with
yeah.
this word. Like, let's find synergies. Like, this is not a human word. I am not an AI. Just like connect. Talk to me like a human. Be like, yo,
Yeah.
I love like the way that you do your posts, or I like this particular topic, or like just something to connect as a human being, right? Like
True.
a lot of my connection requests, like I think they're unhinged, so you're not gonna easily forget them, and that's the key as well, right? Lean into what makes your brand new. Like I know, say for example, ZK Pizza. So like, her brand is around like vampire, like that sort of
Yeah, I
vibe,
know
and
it.
even her connection request
Yeah.
leans into that. Her content leans into that. Like hers is a great example on LinkedIn of someone just fully encapsulating one particular brand, one particular, like, I'm going to be consistent with my voice. I'm going to be consistent with how it looks. I'm going to be consistent in the words that I use. I'm going to be consistent in the messaging overall. Keep those things consistent, including your DMs, including it as a person. You'll stand out. Like, you don't need to go and do stupid things.
True. And this comes back to like identifying your values, knowing yourself, and knowing your strengths, and knowing what you really want or want to work on and excited to work on, right?
I mean,
Yeah,
a lot of the time, it's not so straightforward, right? Like, it's easy for
Definitely.
someone who's spent the time to work on themselves to understand what you represent and what the direction you want to go in. Because I know I was there before where I'm like, I don't like, it's great to tell somebody, go find yourself. And it's like, well, how do you do that? How do you really understand that? And it takes time. There's no overnight fix.
Definitely.
I'm sorry, like, if there's a guru out there being like, oh, this is your perfect weight loss formula for finding your voice.
Yeah. Definitely, it needs experience. It needs time. It needs acceptance. It needs like healing at some point too. Yeah. Thank you so much, Pia, for this fruitful and valuable episode. I enjoyed my time with you, and if you want to say one last thing, I'll leave the floor for you.
Well, firstly, thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it, and this has been an amazing conversation. Secondly, if anyone wants to follow more, get those deeper insights, I have a newsletter, which is the Badass Mug. You can find that on my featured section on my profile. I also have the podcast, which is The Art of Branding. Otherwise, hit a follow on LinkedIn under Beatrice Good Connect. I'm sure the details will be in the show notes, and have a badass day, guys.
100%. I'll include all the details in the description box below. And yeah, Thank you for tuning in to Connect. Your feedback helps us grow, so please leave us a comment and share your thoughts. Share this episode with others who may benefit from our guest insights. This would help us spread the knowledge and strengthen the community of business leaders. Stay connected.